For those of you who don't know me, my name's Stuart. I'm the city manager for the city of Ridgefield. I've been the city manager for just over 8 years. Prior to that, I served almost 10 years as a Clark County commissioner prior to the charter where they are now Clark County councilors. But served there for 10 years, worked local land use issues prior to that. I've worked in land use issues in Clark County for over 20 years now. And before that, a few years up in Olympia, working on land use issues up there. Grew up in Ridgefield area, grew up in the zip code, but not in the city limits itself. So been around Clark County most of my life. So today I wanted to go through just a little bit about what you all probably already see and feel, which is growth and development in the city of Ridgefield. As most of you already know, we are and have been the fastest growing city in the state of Washington. And that has continued on. And I'll show you a little bit about kind of why we see that happening. So I'm going to share my screen here. See if I can make that work. And this is a presentation I've actually used once before this year. So forgive me for recycling here a little bit. Let's see, it's working its way through. All right, can you all see this?
Yes.
The presentation? Yes. Okay, I'm seeing head nods. Okay, so who are we in Ridgefield? I'm kind of like just blowing through that. There was a YouTube that I had that basically tells the story of Ridgefield. The quick of it is, though, is we are a city, not only the fastest growing city in the state of Washington, but we were a city that was already going to be growing, but it's a city that has that kind of small town charm and connection to the natural environment that people really are drawn to. It is why we knew that, it's the reason that people come. It's also the challenge that we have as we grow to keep those things that people love about this place. That's the challenge, is that people come here because we have this really cute, amazing, historic downtown. We have this connection to the National Wildlife Refuge, surrounded by this kind of pastoral setting, but still easy access to the urban centers. But that challenge, the challenge remains, like, how do we make sure we keep it that place that people want to come to? It's a good challenge to have that. So where are we, and how does that make sense with regards to why we're growing so fast? Well, if you look at Ridgefield and you draw a circle kind of from Portland, you draw a circle around Portland. You can see the circle where Ridgefield is within it. On the south side of Portland is Wilson, on the south edge of that circle is Wilsonville. East side is Troutdale, west side and Camas. West side, you're looking at, Beaverton, Hillsborough. The last area that is really underdeveloped in this area, around the center city, is Ridgefield and the Discovery Corridor. Justin, do you have your hands up? Did you have a question?
We are just actually seeing a subtitle prompt kind of on your presentation. So I don't know if everybody else is seeing that, but
here, let me just get out of this. All right, can you see the slide? See the slide now? It's going to be a little bit small, but can you see the slides themselves now?
There we go.
Okay, all right, sorry about that. So, so the first thing is, thank you, Justin. So when we look at our location, like I was saying, we are equidistant around the center city to Wilsonville on the south side, Troutdale east side, and Camas on the east side, Hillsborough and Beaverton on the west side. Those areas on the southwest and east are really pretty well developed out. I look to Wilsonville a lot to see, like, how did they develop along the I-5 corridor? What did they do that I like? What did they do that we don't like? And that we can learn from on things. So if you look at the Discovery Corridor, we are really that last underdeveloped quadrant around the center city of Portland that provides that access and proximity. So 20 minutes to Portland, 20 minutes to the airport, and importantly for some of our businesses, north of the Portland metro area for all of those that are moving freight and actually moving goods, creating goods and moving goods to the north, because we are outside of the Portland metro area if you're headed north to Seattle. So when we look at it, we were an area that was always going to grow. We just were. We were a house with good bones. We were an area that had room to grow, large single ownership, contiguous parcels. So we knew we were going to grow. The question simply was, when were we going to grow, and how are we going to grow, and how can we make sure that we do the best job possible for that? So that's the thing we focus the most on, is how are we going to grow? So the first thing we do is we plan for it. Council sets a broad vision and then adopts specific plans, our comp plan, our sub-area plans. We have 3 different sub-areas. The overarching vision that we hear from our council and from our community is embrace the unique nature of Ridgefield and embrace quality, that excellence is acceptable, that we can actually push for that and we can require it. And as such, we can create value in what is built, and that value grows over time. So a lot of work on not just the general plans, but also on specific overlays, standards, commercial, industrial. We just did a missing middle, did a housing update over the past year using state funds to actually look at how can we be better in what we do for missing middle housing. So really getting into our design standards for commercial, residential, industrial, really making sure that the fit and feel is right, but also that we're making sure that we're spending more time on the product than the process. And it's a work in progress. That is something that we continue to work on. It's something that I continue to push for, and it's something that we'll keep working on, is making sure that we that people are spending more time and money on the product than the process, because the process is that's the tool to get you to what makes sense. So that's really what we're working toward. I tell my staff all the time, code is the tool to get to what makes sense. If it is not getting you to what makes sense, then we change the code. We don't change what makes sense. That's not how it works. So that's what we continue to work on. But once we plan for it, we also have to pay for it. As fast as we're growing, we're still a small city. We're a city that requires partnerships. So we really get help from our friends. There's a few examples of that down here. The Ridgefield South I-5 access, which will connect us to I-5 at 219. We received pre-design funds for that from the state. We received $175,000 from the state for helping us with our new police station that's being built in downtown Ridgefield. $500,000 from the state for our new library. $2 million for the ports project. We actually received, and it's not on here, $6 million from the federal government and a build grant that our Congresswoman helped us get to help extend Pioneer Street to the east to connect with Clark College. $400,000 for overpass screens, $50K from the Cowlitz, $330 from the legislature, and then another $250,000 for a splash pad that's going to be going into Overlook Park that we're constructing this year. So really, we really do rely on help from our friends, partnerships to help get things done. The other thing is we don't just wait for it, we go get it. Hope is not a strategy. So, and it's something I truly believe is that, there's a lot of places and people that just hope to be successful, hope to get what they're after. But hope's not a strategy. So we go get it. We've put systems in place to help us be effective and efficient in what we do. We go recruit. We have a relationship with a national retail recruiting firm named Buxton. Buxton is what helped us. The picture you see here, that's Rosar's, our grocery store. Rosar's was part of our recruiting process. We said, we need a grocery store. It's funny, when I first got here, and as I was talking about with Ed, I have little kids. And so you don't think about that 20 minutes away is very far for a grocery store. I've lived in rural areas. Doesn't seem so bad. Then when we moved here and we had like a baby and it's 11 o'clock at night and you need something for the kid and you got to go 20, 25 minutes to go to either Freddy's to the south or go to Walmart to the north or Safeway to the north, it becomes significant. So that was the first thing that we went out and recruited, and we were active in what we did. We looked for quality, something that was unique. Something that other people didn't have. We worked and we found Rosar's, who is based out of Spokane. Luckily, one of my council members who became our mayor, former Mayor Stos, is from Spokane, knew them and knew their quality. So we went to work and we spent almost 3 years recruiting them and getting them on the ground, making sure that the design was great, making sure that we were a good fit for them. And we did what was necessary to make it happen. And then beyond the recruiting, we also rely, like I talked about before, on our partnerships, the school district, the port, the state, feds, private developers. We really do look to our partners because we're more successful together. And then finally, we use tools. to get ROSARs, we created an economic catalyst program, which basically was created from whole cloth to lower the fees for a catalytic project, one at each of one of our sub areas, where the council can then look at, is there an economic benefit, a catalytic benefit, where that project becomes the straw that stirs the drink for the sub area. We did the work. We worked with Eric Hovey to get a market report done on what a grocery-led commercial subdivision could create, the jobs, the commerce, the services, what the tax revenue that it could create. And then that helped us make the case for lowering fees to hit the triple net that the grocer needed to hit. So tools like that we've created. And then we also use TIF and PIF credits. TIF, traffic impact fee, park impact fee is the PIF. We do credit programs where we work with our developers where instead of us just taking traffic impact fees from developers, putting them into the city's funds and then eventually building a roadway, we work with a lot of our developers on building the roadways beyond their subdivisions or their commercial projects themselves. And in return, they get credit for that work. They get credit in the frame of traffic impact fee credits. So they then get those credits. The community gets a road that gets built quicker and cheaper than we could do it. They get credits that they use to offset their traffic impact fees that they would pay. And it ends up being an overall win-win for both the developer and for the community, because then the infrastructure is in place to serve those developments as well. So that's been a real positive thing that we've done. And we do the same thing for parks, especially with subdivisions. We have great developers. We've been working, the most recent example one is we've been working with Hinton Development on the Kemper Grove subdivision, where I don't know how many of you knew Joe Mello, but Joe Mello, great community advocate in Ridgefield, someone we worked with a lot and who I miss. But who we wanted to honor and that Hinton wanted to honor with a park. So they're doing an amazing park that is well beyond what they would be required to do, but don't tell them that. But they then get credit for building that. They get park impact fee credits for building this amazing amenity for the community that will be named DeMello Park after Joe. So things like that, we've been really pretty successful in helping to get the infrastructure in place that's necessary for this rapidly growing community of ours. And what kind of success have we shown? With the school district, we are now headquartered. We have our business office in what they call the RAC, which is the administrative offices for the school. We partnered with them to do the renovations on that, create a city council chambers that's also school board chambers. We also partnered with the school district on the Ridgefield Outdoor Recreation Complex, which is home to the Ridgefield Raptors, as well as the Ridgefield Spudders and our youth sports groups, which has been an amazing success. That wouldn't have happened without the school district providing the land. The city built the facility. So the city built it all, and the city built it using development revenue. So great project that we were able to get going on that. And then we already talked about ROSARs, which was something that the port actually provided the property. We worked with a private commercial developer who actually built it for ROSARs. So it was something we really did work partnerships on. And this is just shameless plug because it's Raptors season. So, you just have to put it in there. Ridgefield Raptors are playing at the Rourke. If any of you have not gone to a game, ton of fun. We get between 600 and 1,000 people that come to every one of those games. Great for the families, great for just going out and hanging out. They have great food and beverage, and it's good baseball. It's fun to go see. And we play teams. I think our next series coming up here, I think we're playing the Portland Pickles. So that's teams Portland, Bend, Bellingham, Walla Walla, all over the Northwest. So collegiate wood bat, but fun to have. And that wouldn't happen without our partnership. And then just a couple other quick partnerships, and that's with our refuge. So the refuge on the left side, this picture, this is a rendering, half of which has already now been built for the Administrative and Community and Nature Center at the CARD unit to the National Wildlife Refuge. We get 150,000 plus people coming to the National Wildlife Refuge every year. So we really have been working as a city to work with our federal partners to embrace that, enhance it, bring people to our downtown, one way is to make sure that we have a better visitor center down there and better administrative offices as well. So administrative offices have been funded. Those were federally funded. We spent 6 years beating on doors in DC to make sure that happened, and that's now happened. And then the funding for the Community and Nature Center, which is another $7 million, is in the federal budget, and something that we expect to see here very soon, that they should be starting construction on that within the next few months. So that's coming together. And then on the right side, you can see the rendering of the overpass. This is the Pioneer Street overpass between our downtown and waterfront. This was a partnership, state, federal, port, to get a grade separated overpass from our downtown to our waterfront to set up for redevelopment of the waterfront, which is now accessible for the first time in 100 years because of $100 million worth of investment from the port, the feds, the state, to clean up what was an old mill site. Gorgeous, access to Lake River. When the sun set into the west there's nothing better. It's the sun sets to the west over the Portland Hills and over the National Wildlife Refuge, and that view will never change. It is relatively spectacular. So we are excited to see that waterfront get started in development. The port right now has a survey online. They have a survey asking the community what the community would like to see there. So next thing is kind of like what's happening a little bit in Ridgefield. New home permits. This is the stuff you guys know. This is what tells the story of how fast we've been growing. New home permits. You see 2019, 364, 330. That was the biggest year, 2019 ever. And then 2020 and 2021 happened. We basically doubled down during the pandemic. That's what was most amazing to me is 2020 and 2021 were pandemic years, where we grew faster than we have ever grown in the history of this city. And just as like, not just on the new home permits, but you can look at it, the commercial industrial permits as well, 2019, 20, 21 backed off a little bit, but it's actually picked back up again. It'll pick up a lot next year that you're seeing that pick up. And if you look at the total permits, again, you can see it kind of going up, over 1,700 total permits. So when you look at it from countywide perspective, like over the past 12 months, about almost 20% of the growth in the county is occurring in Ridgefield. We are not that big to be doing that, but we have. We have increased our population. In 2 years, our population has increased 32% from 2020 to 2022. We just got the OFM population numbers for April 1 of 2022. We are up to 13,630 people. When I got here 8 years ago, it was 6,000. So, I mean, you can see it, you can feel it. Anytime you come here, you feel the growth in that. So that's like I said, the challenge is making sure that we grow in a high quality manner, that we are responsive to our clients who are not only the residents, but also the people who come in and are paying the bills for the development itself. So making sure that we are on top of our game for all those who need our service. And it is a continuing challenge, and definitely during COVID, it was a lot, trying to figure out how to do everything. As I'm sure you guys, I hear lots of stories from my realtor friends about how they were having people doing like virtual tours with them walking around the house with their phone, and like people sight unseen, like, yeah, that looks good. Okay, cool. And like, we were in the same world of trying to do things virtually because you had to. So I'm not going to go through a lot of the specific projects, but I do want to go through a few here, and I want to make sure that we have a few minutes for questions too, and I don't want to take up all your time. So I'm just going to kind of show you a few projects in sub areas. This is the junction with I-5, our junction data, junction sub area. We have a plan associated with, this is large, more regional, larger scale, scope, format projects. So when we think about the junction, we think big as far as projects go. What kinds of projects do we see out there? The biggest one that's going to be breaking ground next year, going to be under construction that broke ground this year is Clark College at Boschma Farms. It's another one that there was a lot of work done over a number of years to get everything in place for a master plan and funding for the first building. $58 million is now in place to build the first 70,000 square foot building at Clark College at Boschma Farms. This is one of those big catalytic projects that we see in Ridgefield. You can see kind of how it's set up. You can see two roundabouts. There's one on the left. That's actually 65th. That's the current roundabout. The other roundabout that you see, that's the build grant that we got. The build grant that we got actually connects Pioneer Street to the east to this new roundabout, and then south to our industrial hub using Union Ridge Parkway. So it actually connects our industry with the interchange, connects industry with education as well, because we see a lot of potential tie-ins, and so does the college for training opportunities for our businesses, existing and future businesses. A couple of other quick projects there. One of them, commercial project on the east side. It's hard to tell just from this, but the interstate I-5 is on the top of this. North is to the right. So if you go, so north is to the right. This is, if you know where Papa Pete's Pizza is, there's a Subway, there's a little bank. Fuel Bistro is on the north side of this, which is on the right. The rest of this is all a commercial project being done by Hurley Development. This is retail, restaurants, and then hotel on the south end of it. So that's something that's breaking ground this year. The great project that they're working on right now. Here's kind of a rendering of what it would look like with the I-5 kind of in the background, 65th in the foreground. Another project that's well underway. This is Ridgefield Crossing. This is another Hinton project on the roundabout that you see, that's 65th at Pioneer on the east side of I-5. On the north side of it is Pioneer. The west side, the left side of the picture is 65th. What you're seeing on that, they have in the northwest quadrant of it, there's a 7-Eleven. Kirkland Development is doing an independent living, a 5-story independent living with 4 stories of independent living with retail on the ground floor. And then just on the south of that, Tractor Supply Company is in for permitting right now to sites just on the south side of that. And then if you look, you can see on the southwest, northeast, and southeast quadrants around this massive wetland complex are residential, workforce housing, narrower product, other opportunities for people to live and work in the same general area. So that's this Ridgefield Crossing. And then it's hard to, this one is one I'll just kind of blaze by, but one of the big industrial projects that we have is being built by Spect. It's a 500,000 square foot industrial shell. They've got 3/5 of it already leased out. This is in that industrial area on the east side of I-5. That's the mix that we have. We have industry and commerce with some kind of workforce housing on the east side in that area. In the 45th and Pioneer sub area, which is kind of that's our crossroads, the big, huge, tall roundabout. That's our crossroads area where Rose Hours is at. So Rose Hours is the centerpiece of Discovery Ridge. Discovery Ridge has a ton of small scale retail commercial in it, offices, as well as Rose Hours. Next for Discovery Ridge, Les Schwab is in for permitting right now. We have other kind of smaller scale, and then the port has property on the south side of this project area where they're kind of still working through whether it will be mixed use or whether it will be additional commercial. We already looked at Rosars and kind of what the design elements of that. On the west side of Royal Road and south of Pioneer is Pioneer Village. On the west side of this is 300 units of apartments. That's a Cerro. They've been popping. And actually, I should have mentioned just south of the Discovery Ridge property with Rosars is also 150 units of apartments at Legacy Trails Apartments, which between Legacy Trails and Acero, those were the first big apartment complexes in Ridgefield, but they were done methodically with a 10-acre park, which is Horns Corner Community Park between Acero Apartments and Pioneer Village, with all of the commercial amenities, and then creating a walkable environment to those services and amenities, and then connections with multimodal, including fixed route transit, now that C-Tran is now coming to Ridgefield, so with fixed route service. So Pioneer Village is under construction. It has Starbucks and Papa Murphy's and Dog Boutique, Hallstrom Home Store, a couple of, it has an Anytime Fitness, Riverview is there, a lot of, some clothing boutiques, hair and nails, several restaurants are underway right now, beverage, playmakers, one other I'm forgetting. So some larger sit-down restaurants are coming in as well to create additional kind of opportunities that area. So lots happening there. Last thing I'll mention at this junction area here is our YMCA. It's another partnership. This is a rendering of what the YMCA will look like on the north side of Pioneer. It will be breaking ground this year. This was a partnership with a private developer in the YMCA to create a full service YMCA for our community. It will be LEED certified, the site and the building. What you're seeing here is kind of the two-story glass wall, southward facing in the, what do they call it? The natatorium, the pool area. The pool area will also have, there will be two pools. There will be kind of a zero entry pool, kids pool, that kind of thing, and then a lap pool so that they have multiple opportunities. There'll be gym, fitness, and then there's also opportunity for additional tenants. We're actually working with a private developer to create space that is connected to the Y for tenants, including physical therapy and childcare. Great connection with what the YMCA does and needs. And if the YMCA wants to expand over time, then they have that space available to do so. And lastly, downtown waterfront. This is our last kind of sub area that we look at. I mentioned already the police station building. This is what we call the Bluffs. It's kind of this is easier to look at. So this is the Bluffs building. Police station will be in that. The port will be moving their offices into that. And then the upstairs, the second story, will be privately held and leased space for the near term. Long term, the city, has been working with the developer to potentially over time that we would potentially take over the building as we grow. But for now, having it kind of like how Battleground City Hall has private tenants in their city hall, same concept, really maximizing the use of the space and getting private investment. Library, that's what it was. This is what it is. Great addition to the community, open, wonderful amenity. And then lastly, Miller's Landing, we've talked about that. This is the waterfront development connection with Lake River. Really, it's just similar to what Vancouver's doing. It's just smaller scale, just a little bit smaller scale, more connection with the water. Because we can have better connection with Lake River, then it's harder to have connection with Columbia River. So this is it's a little bit lower scale, but Lake River goes straight into the Columbia River. So great project. There will be a 5-acre park that we're working on as a first phase. How do we get people into that downtown area? It's events. The biggest one I just point out to you because it's that time of year is the 4th of July celebration. If you haven't been to Ridgefield for the 4th of July, you should come. It is amazing. It is every little bit of Americana you can imagine. The parade, the downtown, the downtown festival. It'll all be back this year in full force. It's going to be a good time, and it always is. It's just fun. But we do events all the time to try to bring people down here. Farm to Table is another great connection with our downtown, creating kind of we close down a little bit of a street. We have a dinner. We have a 200-person dinner in the middle of a street in downtown Ridgefield, and it is so much fun. And we use local catering, local foods, local wines. It benefits a couple of different organizations here. And it's a great opportunity to connect. That one's everything else is families. That one's adults is 21 and over because we had to have something so that I could leave my kids at home. So now, when is this all happening? Now. It's happening now. And yesterday and the day before that and tomorrow. Will it keep happening? Yes. We will continue to see the growth occur. It has slowed down a little bit in 2022, but it's slowed down to normal, a little bit normal, Ridgefield normal. So instead of 650 new single home permits, we'll have 350, maybe 400, which is still before this peak, the highest we've seen, but it has slowed down a little bit in that. But here's the issues. Growth. It has impacts. The biggest one that we're fighting right now and that we and all of us need to be aware of and care about is the schools. is that if the schools don't get funded, we will start losing that quality, one of those quality that brings people to Ridgefield. Because one of those qualities, and I'm sure you all know it and have said it, is that we have great schools. And if we don't have great schools, then people aren't going to want to move here. Businesses don't want to come here as much. So we have to work on getting the school bonds passed. 5 times now, we have come just a hair's breadth away from passing the school bond. We've got to get it over the finish line. So this is what I always ask is there's you, there's me, there's us. For me, I represent the interests of the entire community. And this is staff, manager, council, community. I have to see the field. I kind of see the big picture of everything and then set expectations and provide information. For you, your job, you've got to represent the individual interests of your buyers, your sellers, set their expectations, and then work with professionals to find, format, and close deals. You advocate for those things. It is a wonderful thing. And then us together, our job is to dance well together. It's to find that rhythm where we're dancing well together. We find shared interests. We create, protect, and advocate for a strong community that adds value. Those parks, those schools, those things add value to what you do. They add value to what I do. And then we get to be proud of what we created together. Then we get excited about it and we get to talk about it and all the wonderful things that we've been able to do. So with that, I've gone through a lot in probably more time than had been allocated for me. So I appreciate you giving me a little leash on that. But with that, thank you very much. I'm going to stop sharing my page here, and I am happy to answer any questions. Again, Justin, I don't know your timing. I don't want to bleed in too deep into any other agenda items you have.
No, I think maybe take 5 minutes here, and if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. I know I have one, but I'll leave it to the floor first.
If you have a question, feel free, and you can either put it in the chat or just unmute yourself. And because I think everybody can unmute themselves.
I have a question. Do you know what's happening with, is there a traffic circle going in on Royal Road by Seven Wells?
There is, yes. So one of the things, and forgive me, I should have mentioned this, is one of the things that in all this growth is we've really been working toward assuring that we have the infrastructure to support that. One of the biggest pieces of that is our roadways and really making sure that we have the new roads to support the growth and that we are taking care of the roads that we have. On the taking care of the roadways side of things, our voters in November of last year approved a sales tax for a transportation benefit district for pavement preservation. That we already had a transportation benefit district, but it was the car tabs. It was a $20 car tab fee. So that car tab fee, the council said, look, we'll get rid of that if you approve the sales tax. So both of those things occurred. Sales tax was approved, car tabs are gone. Car tab fee is gone. So the pavement preservation program that we're doing on the south end of Royal Road, as it gets up to the high school and approaches Hillhurst, that's going to be dealt with this summer as part of our pavement preservation program. We also have several other neighborhood areas that we will be doing preservation work on, thanks to the voters' investment. As far as the Royal Road piece, we actually worked with developers from Seven Wells and Clover Hill primarily, where they actually have been contributing to funds to rebuild Royal Road. Royal Road will get rebuilt to a 3-lane cross section with curb, gutter, sidewalk, bike lanes, a planted center median turn pockets will be in there. Really a kind of a boulevard feel. There will be a roundabout at 15th South Wells Drive and Royal Road. That construction, it was stalled out because we were trying to get the 14 different utility providers to work together and bury their lines, which is a fun thing. But that's now done, and the work will be going in earnest here to get that roundabout put in place. So yes, there will be a roundabout at 15th and Royal Road.
What's the time frame for completion?
So time frame for completion, I would say, end of the year for that section. So that section will be roundabout, lowering the hill just south of 15 so that the sight distance is better. So lowering the hill, the way you can tell how low the hill will go is if you just look to your left or your right, there's a wall. kind of a Veracrete, really decorative wall. And the wall looks like it's really below grade in a couple of spots. The wall will be at grade. So if you look at the bottom of the wall, that's where the roadway will be. And then, so it'll go from there down to, and I always forget the name of the road, but there's the southern entrance to Seven Wells. That project piece will go to there. Then next year, we'll do the northern section, and then we'll do the southern section. So this year is kind of the center section, roundabout, and the approaches to the roundabout, and then taking that hill down.
Thank you.
Of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, Steve, is there any update on Costco that you can share? Or is that still flying low?
Not sure. I've never heard that name before. Is that a store? I haven't heard of it before, but if there were a store that had that name, I mean, it seems realistic that they might come to Ridgefield. It's
Costco?
secret that it's like, but what I will tell you is nothing is finalized. I expect something to be finalized very soon with regards to a national retailer regional concept for the northwest kind of quadrant of the I-5 interchange. So on the north side of Pioneer, west of I-5, I expect within the next month, you will be hearing something significant with regards to that property. So soon.
So, and kudos, it's nice to see the Hintons, the Hurleys, the Kirklands, you know, they bring a lot of local business to their development sites. And
no, it's cool to work with people who know the place, right? I mean, like even the property that we're talking about with the kind of the regional retailer, large scale retailer that really is catalytic in a variety of ways. The property is owned by all of us, you know, and so Jan and Steve, and now Josh is doing the work on it. It is a wonderful thing to be able to work with people who know and care about our area. I'm not saying anything bad about the Nationals or anything like that, but it is nice to be able to work with people who know us and care. There were a couple of questions in the chat. One of them was, when is the park starting down on the Lake River waterfront? And then kind of connected to that, how will parking be impacted, the boat launch? So they are interrelated questions. The new port director, so the port CEO that was there for 25 years almost, Brent Granning, retired at the end of the year, did an amazing job, and now he is being succeeded by a gentleman by the name of Randy Mueller. Randy's excellent. Randy was the director of the port in Chehalis. He knows us because he worked at the port of Ridgefield prior to going to Chehalis. So he knows us, he knows the port. He has taken over and is running with the kind of the next phase of the waterfront. The first piece is asking people, what are the priorities for the waterfront? The park, the access to the water, the boat launch, those things, those are parts of that survey, is asking people that how much that they value that connection. We all anticipate that that's going to be a high priority. As such, Randy, the new port CEO, and myself have already been talking about getting the Port Commission and the City Council together to work on developing the park and the waterfront concept as a first phase of the waterfront development. I expect that within the next 6 months, the Port Commission and the City Council will get together and be talking about what a park might look like. It would get transferred to the city because it would be a city park. But what about the boat launch? The boat launch is owned and operated by the port. Would they want to keep that? Would they want to turn that over as part of the park? As far as the parking goes for the boat launch, there's been conversation about, in the pretty picture of Miller's Landing, there's no parking down there. There's buildings and boardwalk and park. But there's been conversation about having parking kind of back toward the railroad tracks on the waterfront, but kind of having multi-purpose parking areas that are kind of away from the water, not the highest value property or highest value building property, but still really close for what people could do, and really embracing that connection with the waterfront with that boat launch. But also recognizing that boat launch gets used from a lot of people that are outside of the Port District in the city of Ridgefield. So it gets really, really crowded. And as we're looking at trying to balance all of those uses for the waterfront, I think there's going to be a conversation about who are we serving? with that boat launch and with the connection to the waterfront? Is it, the entire county, or is it really, should it or could it be just people who live within that port district? So I think there's going to be a lot of conversation about that, but I know that there's a lot of interest in keeping that boat launch. It is popular. So it's something that I know will be hectic. A lot of people want to be talking about it. Last question I saw in the chat was, what can be done to help the school levy pass? So this is a good point, is that in the beginning of August, the school district is running a levy. This is their operating levy. This is not the school bond to fund the capital improvements. So as such, it requires a 50% plus one passage for the levy. For a bond, you got to get to 60%. But for a levy, it's 50. So the biggest thing is, number one, helping people understand, just talking to your neighbors, talking to your client, talking to 5 people, to just help them understand that, oh, this is the levy. This is just the operating funds. This is a replacement of the funds they need to operate the district. This isn't a new bond. That's a different question. And just helping them understand that, I think, is the best, easiest way to make sure that we can help get this passed. The levy is just the baseline, and they've been very successful in passing the levies, in just maintaining operating funds. But it is something we need to make sure that people understand. This is not the bond. This is just operating costs. And I think it is going to be a little bit interesting, especially on this ballot, because the ballot here in early August is going to have 3 different tax measures on it. In our area, it's going to have 3 different tax measures, because it'll have the school district's levy. It has Clark Cowlitz Fire and Rescue's levy lid lift to provide EMT, emergency medical technician services, and kind of add those services to what they do. So that's a second levy, and that's those are property tax, and then there is a sales tax. Oh wait, I can't remember if it's property tax or sales tax. Shoot, for the Clark County Public Safety levy that's going to, it's sales tax. It's sales tax. It's 1/10 of 1%. Sales tax that the county is putting on the ballot to provide for public safety services. And this is one where, if you live in the city of Ridgefield, 60% of that revenue, that if you say yes to it, 60% of that sales tax will go to the county, 40% would stay with the city. So there are going to be 3 different kind of tax pieces on the August ballot, which is unusual to see that much happening on an August ballot. So that's my biggest concern, is that people just can get confused, and they just are like, wait, there's 3 different taxes on here that I'm supposed to vote on. So I think that's my biggest concern about it. Any other questions? There's nothing else in the chat. Did anyone else have anything for me today?
You know what, I'll make a comment, Steve. Our members are always trying to advocate for owner occupied housing and pathways to home ownership. So I really hope, as the city goes through with, Miller's Landing and a lot of these others, that you're thinking about different housing types like condominiums, things like that. And I think specifically with the waterfront, you want people to invest in that downtown area and kind of stay. So I just hope the city's thinking about that.
We definitely, our council's been really clear that they see that as a priority with the waterfront development. Years ago, when they were first doing the Miller's Landing kind of master plan, you had at least 1, maybe 2 port commissioners who just didn't believe it was even legal, let alone the right thing to do, to have residential as a component of a port development. And they also their concept was really to own the entire piece, and then get developers in there, a master developer who would then, that the port would then lease and do land leases. I think later on now, I think that our new port director and the port commission sees that, number one, maybe holding on to all of the land isn't the best idea. Maybe set the plan, set the frame for it, but then work with other developers to sell. Some developers are going to want to own the land. Others are going to want to lease it. So being flexible about that, and being flexible about having housing as a component, having residences as a component of it, because it really is a great opportunity to create that density of people that will help support the services for our downtown and our waterfront. We need that. We need to actually create that. And I know our council is committed to it. The one thing also that I would say, and it's our community development director said it as part of this kind of buildable lands process, is one of the things that we have been seeing, and it is a struggle, and it's not something we can control, is that when we talk about first-time home buyers and having ownership opportunities, the issue is that we have builders that are coming in, building narrow product, building kind of, I mean, affordability is a whole longer conversation, but something that is a lower cost, smaller footprint, smaller lot than kind of some of the larger subdivisions that we have. So it might provide an opportunity for that workforce housing. The issue is that investors, out of town investors, are buying them up, and they buy them in chunks, and then they rent them for $2,500 to $3,000 a piece. And we can't control that. That's not something the city has any sort of legal controls over, nor should we. Really, I mean, we don't control the market that way, but it's a heads up for all y'all that just us opening up and saying, hey, yeah, we're going to make this available. We're going to work with you guys to have different products types and help get it through. Doesn't mean that first-time home buyers are even going to be able to get to them before the investors snap them up. So it's just something that we've seen a fair amount in Ridgefield. I don't know if it's prevalent in other areas. I know it's something that we've seen and that we're somewhat concerned about here.
Appreciate that, and I did hear that from the community development director at that public hearing. It was kind of concerning as well.
Yeah.
So we'll look into that and see what we can do, and I'll do a little research on maybe what's going on in some other cities. I do want to open up for one last call for any questions before we let Steve go. I know he's probably a very busy person, so. Well, all right. Thank you so much, Steve. We really appreciate it. And maybe we'll have you on again if you'd like.
My pleasure. Thanks for all the work that you're all doing. I appreciate it. And I'm glad to be able to work with you guys and enjoy some sunshine. We're finally getting a little bit. So have a wonderful week.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.